Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Everyone, welcome into the program. Today on the show, we have the one, the only, Mr. Nathan Evans, managing editor of Popzara.com. If you haven't heard about them, where have you been all my life? Popzara.com, they have a great mix of reviews, topics, articles, discussion. They have, of course, everything from the most recent pop culture to tech. There's a little bit of overlap there. And you may even see some products. I know I was just looking on their site and saw that Herman Exum, who is another correspondent for the program, actually did a review of a hardware crypto wallet that, let's just say it takes a very good picture. So, ladies and gentlemen, highly encourage you to go check that out. But computeramerica.com is where you'll find a link to that site and, of course, everything that we will be talking about today. One-stop shop, and obviously while you're over on our site, you can check out social media, podcasts, articles, reviews, show notes, all that and more. So, everyone, with that being said, let's go ahead, bring on Nathan, and let's just have fun with it. So, as I said before, Nathan Evans, managing editor, Popzara.com, and looking forward to talk about all these different things. Hopefully, we get to them all. This conversation is always one of my favorites because, for a Friday, it's relaxing. The conversation flows very well, and I always have so much fun. So, Nathan, welcome back onto the program. How you doing?
Hey, Ben, how's it going? So this is where I usually interject some sort of non sequitur and try to drive the topic away from what we're going to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I just sent you two things real quick. So I just discovered today that if you have Windows 11 and you have the latest update, Microsoft put a spinny little animation in the cogs in your app, specifically the taskbar app.
Check that out.
And that's the most Mackie thing I've ever seen this company do. They now literally have a little UI that spins the cog when you touch it.
Huh. Yeah, and of course, for everyone out there watching the video, you can see that there. Real quick, is there any purpose, or is it simply click on it and it's like a little hidden Easter egg kind of deal that has no real application?
Well, I think it's going to change the world. It is what it is. It's a harmless little thing. Maybe it's to distract you from all the bugs and all the embedded ads and the fact they're going to start watermarking your Windows 11 on. You can't see, but I'm doing air quotes. Non-compliant machines. Now think about this for a second. I want you to journey with me into the mind of a maniac just for a second. So Microsoft is going to start putting a watermark on Windows 11 machines that are non-compliant. What's the word? Non-supported.
Right. Yeah.
But in order to put the watermark, it needs to be running Windows 11. So the watermark will tell you that your machine that clearly supports Windows 11 because it's running it will have a watermark saying it's non-supported. And so,
yes, I think that they're putting that on those that are running Windows 11, but we're able to kind of like not upload it, but install it without meeting all of the hardware specifications. Because we talked about this when Windows 11 first came out. One of the main ones is just running a processor made after like 2016, 2017 because of the Ghost, the Afterburn, whatever malware or security flaw. So you can still load it because your hardware is good enough, but should you be running it? Looks like Microsoft is throwing on a watermark.
Yeah. Basically, if any of you that have ever bootlegged Windows or didn't get a key, the watermark. But no, it's just, I think what had happened is, I think the plan was, and I think like circa 2006, when they were basically doing artificial hardware limitations, saying you need such and such hardware to run Windows Vista. It turns out you didn't. It was all a marketing scheme to push, I think, DirectX 9. But this is very similar. And I told you how I stand about this, and I think I've been proven right in the fact that it's just hocus pocus. Like machines run Windows 11 just fine. In fact, they run it really well. It's the idea that they impose these artificial, fictitious hardware limitations because I don't think they calculated the chip supply shortage. I really think that they maybe thought they could force people's hands into buying new machines they didn't necessarily need. And I just think it was a bizarre choice. But you remember, this is a Microsoft that was also doing like Windows 10X or 11X. They're going to do dual screen Windows. They were going to do all this stuff. And they basically said, screw it, we're not going to do any of that stuff. So they backtracked on nearly everything. And I got to tell you, I'm really angry at Microsoft because I really like Windows 11. And I think people would really get a blast out of it if they didn't have all these, they just didn't make the thing so damn unlikable.
Yeah. So I do have to say, and by the way, Rover in the chat saying the easiest way to get rid of it is to switch to Linux. But I will say that even within Windows 11,
don't get me started.
I think that you can dig into the settings and turn off the watermark. Yeah. But a lot of people aren't even going to bother to do that.
Or there's plugins to do it. But it just feels like Microsoft. This is not how you make people like your operating system.
Yeah.
That's like it's. I don't know. Yeah. It's like, to me, it's like, you have your high school sweetheart and she's perfect for you, or he's whatever your gender is. And this really rich, entitled, privileged person comes with all these restrictions. It's like, you can date me if you give me a diamond ring. If you give me, you know what? You're not worth it. You're not worth the diamond ring. I'm going to stick with what I have. And that's what it feels like. And no amount of spinny cogs is going to change that. Although, I'm not going to lie to you, I've been spinning that thing for like 20 minutes. It does work.
Something to fidget with, but this is the same Microsoft that said that Windows 10 was going to be the last operating system ever. We knew that that wasn't going to be the case. Microsoft has, I think you're right. Even back in the day, like 2 years ago when COVID first started, they said that there's a chip shortage and it's going to last until about 2023. Now the best estimates are somewhere in 2025, I think. The industry's very up in the air about that.
And I think what we're going to see, though, and I think you see this in gaming a lot, and I think you're seeing this with Windows 11, is that a lot of what we deem like necessary hardware upgrades are all induced by these companies. Like, our hardware is pretty good. Like you and I were talking about the game Elden Ring before this and how we both like it. Yeah. Elden Ring is the biggest game of the year so far. It might continue to be the biggest game of the year. That game's available on last gen hardware. You don't need a PlayStation 5 or a supercomputer, right? You can play it on PS4 and it runs pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you could break your PS4 DualShock 4 controller when you die on that boss for a million times. But I want to say this thought. One quick thing I didn't send you about, this is going to knock you for a roll. I forgot that the Oscars are happening this weekend.
I've been out in public and they have TVs running in the background, which is about the only place I see cable nowadays. They are blanketing it with advertising on TV, but I think that's why a lot of people haven't heard about it because
TV is TV. What's that? What's TV? And normally I don't care about the Oscars. I haven't cared about them for a long time. But, we did if I can shamelessly plug, we did a podcast a couple months ago where, the movie guys, we all got together and we thought, what are the best movies of 2021? Mm-hmm. And if I can plug that a little bit, but what's funny is that you're right. The Oscars have gotten a lot of, like Microsoft, they've gotten themselves in a lot of hot water by making a lot of controversial changes. And I think the idea was that they're going to try to bring it more into the digital stream. But the only reason I bring it up is because here we are talking about streaming channels and streaming services. And I think we're going to talk about a streaming show that just came out today or yesterday. Sure. And terrestrial TV just doesn't know how to do it. They have something like the Oscars that have been on TV for 50 years, and they keep cutting it and cutting it and cutting it, and people don't like it. And it really brings to mind, how do you take this award show that the average person shouldn't be interested in at all and make it a old-fashioned, variety show that used to dominate? And I think that's what it is. Mm-hmm. In the 1950s, you had Sid Caesar, the Show of Shows. You had Mel Brooks. You had all these things, and they put on these great variety shows. The song and dance, the galas, and they'd be entertaining. And I think the Oscars is sort of a relic from that. And I think, we're kind of at the end of the relic, and it's really sad.
Yeah, and I mean, let's face it. There's also this idea that back in the day that you could miss things, like you could miss whole shows, and you'd be like, this was the best of the best this year, and whether or not you've heard about it, you could go back and go, oh well, that was really great, or there was a set amount of content to kind of watch, or set amount of movies, set amount of TV. That's what that was. I feel like nowadays, like people don't miss anything. Like if you're into TV, it's streamable, it's bingeable. It's been written about 1,000 times on 1,000 different websites. It's been reviewed by 1 million different people. Like, are the Oscars there to give people awards? Is that, is that the first time, or like, is that the first time that they are given kudos? Is that the first time they're given an award? No, it feels like that's just the last award that you get before people stop talking about it.
Of course. And I've always respected the Oscars as a device to sort of bring about notice about movies that otherwise wouldn't have got attention, like specifically like animated features. It's usually dominated by Disney or Pixar. My vote for this year goes to Mitchell's versus the Machines, which I think was the best animated movie of 2021. But my pick for the best movie of 2021 is nominated for Best Picture, and it's nominated for Best Director. It's not going to win either one because because it's a Japanese film that's 3 hours long. It's in 5 languages, including Korean Sign Language. There's no way in hell they're going to give that thing any awards. But it's nominated, and it was Barack Obama's best movie of 2021, so somebody's watching it. By the way, the movie's called Drive My Car. And it also doesn't matter because the second best movie of 2021 wasn't nominated for a damn thing. And you know what that movie was? It was Pig with Nicolas Cage.
Pig. Nicolas Cage is in a weird stage, and I know that we're going to move on from TV.
He's back, by the way. He's back.
Yeah, I think you're safe to say that. He was it The Unbearable Weight of Talent or something like that? It's coming out soon.
Yeah, and they just released some pictures of him as Renfield or something in the new upcoming Dracula movie. And I got to give Nicolas Cage credit. He's an interesting guy. He makes interesting movies. Not all of them are good, but they're interesting.
I honestly never thought that he would make it out of the National Treasure, the secret kind of hole that he dug himself into, but or should I say Ghost Rider?
I'll say this: Pig is great. Pig is great. My other editors actually thought it was the best movie of 2021. But I'll say this: if Drive My Car, Pig, there's a bunch of really, really good movies out this year, regardless what the Oscars vote. By the way, they're going to give it to Power of the Dog. You heard it here first. But which is also a good movie, despite what Sam Elliott says. But no, I mean, I'm not really interested in the Oscars, and I don't think a lot of people are. I do think they're kind of outdated. But I wouldn't lie and say, as a film fan, it's always nice to see independent films get a little notice.
So the last thing that we'll say, and then we'll move on to streaming, which is not totally unrelated, but we'll segue into it. The last thing I want to say, though, is Halo TV. I have not seen it. Yeah. I don't think anyone could spoil it for me. And, please don't try to spoil it for me, Nathan, but...
Not possible.
I want like I've seen bad reviews. I even saw a good review. A good review yesterday. It was shocking, but like I'm gonna watch that thing regardless. I love Halo, so I can't wait to see it.
Well, I'll say this: I watched the first episode about 2 hours ago this morning. If you haven't seen it yet, if you don't have Paramount Plus or you don't get it other ways, if you have Game Pass, I think you can get Paramount Plus right now. Paramount Plus is interesting. They're the station that ruins all the Star Trek shows. Yeah. But I'll say this: they're still doing it the old-fashioned way. They're still releasing an episode a week or whatever. They're not going to make you. You're not going to binge Halo this weekend. I got to tell you, I've kind of come around back to the idea of metering these things out, because you dump, like Netflix, you dump a show out, and I get it. We all have schedules, but it turns a show into a consumable in a way that I don't think helps the show. Like you grew up watching TV. A show wouldn't even be filmed a whole season. It would just be filmed like an episode or two, and they tinker with the show and they fix it. But you see Netflix, man. Netflix will spend $100 million on a show and cancel it in 2 days if they don't get as many people watching it.
The Cowboy Bebop one, yeah.
Yeah. And that's just not how you develop good TV. That doesn't work. And that's why your Netflix bill keeps raising, because Netflix doesn't know how to spend any money. They're just like, don't get me wrong. I mean, I like the spaghetti approach, but man, they do not know how to nurture. And I will say this: if you like Netflix, did you ever watch the show Orange Is the New Black?
No, but I've heard a lot about it.
There was a cop on that show. His nickname was Porn Stash because
Nice.
he had that's the guy who played Master Chief in the new Halo show.
Really?
And I won't spoil it for you. The show's been very controversial. I guess the producers have said some things that they weren't inspired by the games. They didn't even play the games. They did its own thing. I will say this. Here's my short TLDR, but I won't tell you if I liked it or not. It's very evident they didn't play the games in the show, but it's also evident that they can't escape the games in the show. So I'm not going to judge a show on the first episode being good or bad. I'll just say this. It's very colorful and it looks pretty, but is it a good show or not? We're going to have to wait and find out, but it's available now. You can watch it.
Yeah.
Well, one episode anyway.
You know, and so I also heard that they had Chief take off his helmet, and you know you can actually see his face. So, and like that was going to be the biggest thing about the TV show is that much like the Mandalorian and Boba Fett, like it's cool, it's Western to be the mask guy, and it's great, but that doesn't make, I guess TV stations or TV producers, that does not make a relatable character. They have to have a face. So, I mean,
keep in mind, this character has been around for 20 years and he's very popular without taking the mask off. Do you remember that whole debate it goes back. Remember Demolition Man with Sylvester Stallone and Rob Schneider?
Yes.
And he took the mask off. And when they made the new Judge Dredd a couple of years ago with Carl Urban, he didn't take his mask off. And people loved it. Like, oh my God, he doesn't take the mask off. Let me say this.
By the way, real quick, I had never even heard of Judge Dredd, and I watched it just like, oh, what is this movie?
The movie's great. By the way.
My God,
the 2012 one is
my
awesome.
Favorite schlocky movie. It's
fantastic.
Done. I love it.
It's fantastic, and everybody involved in that movie is talented. And if you go look at what they've done, I forget the guy's name, Alex something. Yeah. He's become fantastic. Like, and by the way, Carl Urban. Holy hell, like what a career turnaround. He's become like an amazing genre actor. Like everything he's in is great now. You ever watch The Boys? He's fantastic. But no,
anyways, Halo.
The Halo, he takes his mask off in the first thing, so I get it. And to me, that's laziness. It is a little, because like I said, the Mandalorian does it, Boba Fett does it, everybody takes it off. Like Darth Vader, for example, as a character, didn't take the mask off at all during the original movies. Like, and there's a scene in Return of the Jedi. I don't want to get nerdy on you, but there's a scene in Return of the Jedi, a very famous scene when Luke's fighting Darth Vader and the Emperor, and the Emperor's, he's torturing Luke, and Darth Vader just using a mask. You see all the emotion because the performance is great.
And
Yep, and of course George Lucas ruined it by adding no to it. But my point is, if your script is good, your acting is good and everything, it's called pantomime acting, and you can act in a costume. Trust me, puppeteers know how to do this crap. You don't need to take the helmet off. You can trust your audience and you can build that relationship, especially for a character who has never taken the helmet off in 22 years.
Yeah.
So there is precedent that people don't want to see the face.
Do you recall there was a scene, I think at the end of Halo 1, where he's flying away in the Pelican or something like that, and like you see him take the helmet off and he sets it on like the armrest next to him, but of course the way the camera pans out, you don't see anything. Well, have you seen the people who've hacked into the game files? And,
I saw that. Yeah, they had fun with it.
Funniest thing in the world, where they get a different shot of that, kind of the pan out, and they take the helmet off, but luckily the producers of the game and the cinematic, it was just a copy of the helmet, so he's still sitting there with his helmet on while he's resting his arm on his helmet. So
they understand. But going back to Star Wars though, like during the 3 movies, they were very clever. Like they very intentionally obscured Darth Vader's face whenever he took the helmet off. That's clever. Like clever is the conceit. Clever isn't when they made they made a new Power Rangers movie a couple years ago, and the respect for the audience is so shallow that they made their helmets transparent so you could see their faces underneath the helmets. Like, they have this idea that we're going to hire these human actors. We want to get the most mileage out of them. But I'm going to be honest with you. I don't care how good looking you are. I don't want to see your face. I want to see a robot face. If Godzilla was voiced by Tom Holland and I had to see Tom Holland's face in Godzilla, I wouldn't like it. I don't like it.
Yes, Godzilla's tongue is replaced by the head of Tom Holland. That's great.
I gotta give a counterpoint, and I'll be quiet. Mm-hmm. Have you seen Spider-Man yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. No spoilers. There's a lot of Spider-Man in it, but Willem Dafoe's in it, and there's a very, very famous scene in the movie where they acknowledge that the original mask for the Green Goblin was so crappy, they break it apart. They destroy it.
He smashes it.
And Willem Dafoe gets to have his face as the Green Goblin. And you know what I'm going to say. It's fantastic.
He's face awesome. Is way more terrifying than the mask ever could hope to be. Not that it was, but what it hoped to be. Because he's an actor and he knows how to use his creepy ass face. Yes. But that wouldn't work. But him as that in this particular instance, and never anywhere else, Willem Dafoe doesn't need a mask to cover up that beautiful, wretched face because he's so much better without that stupid Power Rangers mask. Yes,
absolutely. The movie knows this.
So there's that, and another great movie. Okay, let's transition away. So Halo, you're on a wait and see kind of
Watch
thing.
It.
By the way,
watch it yourself. Make up your mind. I mean, it's one episode. I can't. I mean, you can kind of tell how I feel about it.
I don't care if it's awful. I'm going to watch it either way. I love it. I know that people are complaining about things like Cortana not being blue, but I mean, obviously, you can't have that much CGI, you know, kind of, and like people are also complaining, I guess, about like the female lead that's supposed to be like the Covenant kind of person. It's like, you know, like video games can render video game characters all day long for cinematics and the game and stuff like that, but movies have budgets, TV shows have budgets, and you know,
this is a very big budget show, though. This is a very expensive show,
and they still have to spread their resources out. Yeah.
Well, I'll say this: in the very first opening minutes, there's a bunch of school kids in the forest talking about all this stuff, and no spoiler. This happens in the first 5 minutes, so it's not a spoiler. They get blown away, like badly. Like their legs get blown off, they get incinerated. These are school kids that get killed. Like I haven't seen this much child murder in a sci-fi show since like Star Wars, like Attack of the Clones or something, like with the younglings or whatever. This show tells you right from the first go that it's going to be rated R. Like there's no bones about it. There's no bones about it. So I'll give it that. It set the gauntlet down quick.
Yeah. So there you go. And I think Halo does better when, you know, the stakes are, you know, high. So there you go. Okay. So Halo aside, now to transition very slightly, we covered this a little bit on the show, but obviously you're going to bring it up. So I wanted to talk about this. Two things here. And there's the story that we're going to talk about here with Google Play stripped of movies and TV shows. Sales. But on top of that, we can tie this in with YouTube releasing a number of TV shows that you probably don't want to watch for free, ad supported. So
yeah, please. I saw that. Keep in mind when we talk about this, we're still talking about Google, right? So we're talking about a company that has become sort of famous for being inconsistent, should I say, with their services. Normally that we talk about chat, how they have 5,000 chat devices. They don't support anything. They don't support Stadia. They don't support this. They don't support that. They abandoned Android this. I mean, if I was a company, I don't know what I would do. I was talking to a client the other day when on the other job about Google, about the different. It's like, what do you want? Do you want to get Google? Should we get Google for apps? You know, Google Drive, Google Gmail, Google Projects, or should we get Office 365? And she was relating how this story about her office decided to use Google and how everything was incompatible, and there was no tech support, and there was no resource center. And they didn't expect that. I said, well, you're not paying for it. What did you expect? You expect all that customer service you got with Microsoft? Sometimes you get what you pay for. But the problem is, like, for every Gmail or Google Docs a successful thing, there's a billion failed projects that Google does. And YouTube right now, I actually think YouTube, you're going to laugh at me when I say this, I think YouTube is kind of a failed project. I know. I'm not saying it's not successful, right? but you're starting to see Google. I mean, you're starting to see YouTube sort of not crumble, but become something else that it wasn't intended. At first, it was intended as a way for people to upload funny videos and funny this, and of course, there became a phenomenon of people doing their own channels. But we're starting to see them pivot away from that, and you're starting to see massive expunges of users, demonetization. They're trying to turn YouTube into something that it literally was not designed to be, which is a TV channel.
Because YouTube has I think it's like YouTube Live or something like that, or they've been trying to turn live or add live TV into YouTube, and much to your point, they've moved away from individuals with channels with audiences and more towards, this is the other side of cable television, and they're trying to turn YouTube more into cable. I've definitely noticed that for sure.
Well, not only that though, there's been many failed attempts at this. YouTube TV, YouTube Music, YouTube this, YouTube that, all failures.
YouTube Red,
but
I think. Yeah.
YouTube Red, but the biggest crunch is the vast majority of people who created YouTube and sustain it are being systematically replaced or demonetized by YouTube's own network. And I'm not talking politics. I'm talking people's channels are being flagged for DMCA takedowns. They're being demonetized because for example, and I'm being political here. I'm not saying, hey, I believe in conspiracy theories and Pizzagate. Okay, that's one thing. But then are we allowed to have stuff from Russia? Are we allowed to have stuff about vaccines? Are we allowed to have this? Even debate is not even allowed anymore. And whether you agree with it or not, it's like, this is not what YouTube was set up to be. YouTube was set up to be a place of counterculture, that you could get those outside voices, and regardless if you agree with them or not.
Yeah.
And it's becomes, I mean, I wouldn't trust, if I had to do a YouTube channel, there's no way in hell I would do YouTube.
Exactly, River, the algorithm. And by the way, there's a Twitch streamer named Ludwig who signed a contract with YouTube. And one of my favorite things about that was that, on Twitch, their algorithm is not as aggressive. I mean, there is one, and they'll flag you for DMCA. You kind of have to watch your step, but it's not too crazy. He was over on YouTube for the first hour, and he was over there. He's like, what's this place? I just signed on. By the way, he probably got signed for a couple $1 million easy. He watched about 4 seconds of Baby Shark, and his whole channel got deleted for 24 hours while he sorted out a DMCA takedown. This guy that's paid millions by YouTube got his channel taken down on his first day because he played 4 seconds of the most played video on YouTube. It's aggressive and weird over there right now.
It's aggressive and weird, but it's also if we're just talking about what the spirit of, again, what YouTube was when it first started, it's become indistinguishable from an MSNBC or a CNN or a cable channel, and the fact that you're not going to go over there to find spirited debate anymore. Let's be honest. We've all gone down those YouTube rabbit holes where you start watching one video and it starts leading to the next. You watch a documentary, whatever. But it's become, I don't know. It's like Reddit in a way. It's become so transparent in its objectification of politics that it's not fun. And I don't think kids are using it. I think that's why you see this rush to services like TikTok or whatever, because they kind of find YouTube abhorrent the way they find Facebook abhorrent. Okay, it was dominant and popular for a very long time, but not forever. As soon as an alternative comes out, people will flee.
It's getting there. Facebook has left a bad taste in everyone's mouth, but I will say there's still plenty of people that go to YouTube that are I'll watch video and video and video and video. But yeah, it certainly has been kind of getting to the point. So one thing I did want to mention was about your whole Reddit comment that, I, like so many people, I just browse Reddit and just go to the front page and look at all. I had to switch apps because my old app was unsupported, so I had to switch to a new smartphone app to read Reddit. And by the way, there are no filters. I'm back on the front page. Everything is there that I normally do. Normally, I have things like Ask Reddit, politics. I have interesting as F, places like that. All of them are usually filtered out. I do not normally subscribe to these. I'm back on the front page. Reddit is, I got something for this. Okay, here we go. Reddit is a hole. It is actually awful. It is.
Oh yeah, it's
terrible.
pretty bad.
Oh my god.
And like I said, it didn't used to be this way. It's okay. I didn't want to bring it up, but I will. DuckDuckGo. I like DuckDuckGo. I've been a fan of DuckDuckGo for a couple of years. It's one of the reasons I use Firefox primarily over Chrome. I use them both. Mm-hmm. Is that lovely search bar where I can add as many search engines as I want. Trust me, if you like looking online, use Firefox. Use something with a search bar. It will change your internet experience. But during this whole Russian-Ukrainian conference, the CEO said he made a misstep. He said, "Oh, to stop misinformation, we're going to prioritize and we're going to devalue certain things."
Right.
And I thought to myself, I get why you think that's a good idea, but it's not a good idea because it doesn't stop. Because once you realize you can do this, you're not going to stop doing this, and eventually, it's like anything else. It's going to introduce this sort of cascading infraction into your algorithm where it doesn't work anymore.
A watershed moment for Reddit, and then I'll move off Reddit. But it was when the old founder or CEO, whatever the hell his role was, he went into someone's comment on on Ask Me Anything, and he changed the guy's comment to be something completely different. There was no edit mark. There was no this was edited by an administrator. He could straight up change someone's message, and there would be no evidence of it on the consumer facing side. People looked at that, and that freaked them the hell out because hey, that means that admins on the back end of Reddit could change anything to look like anything, and that's scary.
Well, it's not only just scary; it's unethical. And it's like people all the time say these are private companies, they can do whatever they want. Yes, they can. But I've always maintained, as I will right now, as I will always, that it's a two-way streak. It's a two-way transaction. You agree to use their services, but they agree to provide services. And the services they provide have to be as consistent as the ones you expect. And if you're going to give money to a company like Google or Apple or Microsoft for their services, those services need to have some sort of representational value that they're going to be consistent and you can rely on them. If they're going to change them every single day because something happens somewhere, then you don't have that consistency. And how can you possibly build a business when the rules change? For example, if I make a YouTube channel and it's based on video clips from Voltron and Muppet Babies, right? Yeah. Okay, YouTube says that's good today. But if YouTube decides next week that I'm sorry, you can't have the Muppet Baby clips, you can't have the whatever clips, then what happened to all that work I did? I spent all this money advertising. I made banners, I made everything. Oh, I'm so sorry. We changed the policy. Deal with it. Well, that's not fair. That's not fair. And that's what happens to a lot of these people, is that how on earth can you invest in this when you don't have any consistent baseline? Right. And it's one thing to say, okay, we're going to take your Muppet Babies down. Okay, I get that. But what happens if it's an opinion? What happens if you have an opinion about something? Let's say I'm going to have a whole Reddit about how I hate Ben Crossman and Computer America can go suck, donkey sticks. Right?
Why are you posting the most common conceptions? that makes
exactly.
sense. Of course.
I got tens of followers just on that. But what I'm saying is, what if I have that and all of a sudden they decide, well, you can't have that because it's considered defamation because Ben is now a protected class. But that's not the deal. We didn't make that deal. And it just keeps cascading from there. And that's why these people, they sound good. It sounds good. But man, I'm not a biblical guy, but there's a reason why they say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. It's like, stop it. Stop messing with it. Right. Stop it.
So, and actually to get you a little bit back on topic, because, we're talking about YouTube and, kind of all this TV stuff.
I like YouTube, by the way. I do like YouTube and I have my favorite channels. Yeah. But yeah,
it's changing. It really is, and
not for the better. Not for the better.
So I wanted to steer you back a little bit closer to Google Play Movies and TV, because Google Play. Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not a big Android user, and I know that we have our podcast there and stuff like that, but is Google trying to move away from Google Play to something else?
I heard that. I've heard that. I've heard that they're going to try to devalue Google Play as a base and go. I haven't heard what it is. Truth be told, this weekend when I couldn't sleep, so I did one of those update days where I looked at every electronic device in my house and I updated everything. And it turns out I have an old Android tablet I forgot I had. And I love it. I used to love this tablet. It's a really crappy O&N tablet from Walmart, but it works. It's got Android 10, which if you know anything about Android tablets, that's pretty recent. And I ended up spending a couple hours with it because, Android's a fun operating system to. Android is like, if you live in iOS land, which most of us do, a lot of us do, and you visit Android land, it's like going to a third world country a little bit. Like things kind of look familiar, but it doesn't work like it should, and you're in danger of viruses. Yeah, it's true. But no, I was going through the Google Play Store and everything, and I think I noticed then. I think the movies were gone then, and with Popzara, we used to have affiliate links with Google Play Movies for certain things on the Google Play Store. I'm about to lose all those links because Google decided to take them off. And so, it's like, and I guess if you're going to spend money on an ecosystem, like I know people poo-poo Amazon. Oh, Amazon does everything. Yeah, but Amazon's not going anywhere. Amazon's not going to take books off their store. Amazon's not going to take certain items off. And so it's like, if you have to spend money on digital purchases, probably spend your money on a service that's going to be around a little while, like not something that's going to be shut down.
Google is very well known. I think it's like Google Cemetery or something like that. There's
it's famous.
gcemetery.co, and we can even throw it in the show link. But this is just actually this isn't the one I'm thinking of, but still, this is 14 pages of everything from going back to like 2002 or 1, whenever they started. They have they have a lot that they've killed, but and I've said this before on the show, I'm actually a fan of this to an extent. I like it when companies are willing to look at something and say, is this working? Microsoft looked at the Zune and said, this isn't turning out well. Let's move on to something else. More recently though, apropos, they got rid of Mixer. They got rid of Groove Music. They got rid of these failed things. And I will say this, there was a story that came out a couple days ago. In fact, I just put together. There was a story about how Apple was pulling support from Android TV for movies on Apple thing, and then and people said, "Oh, look at Apple; they're being so anti-competitive." But here's Google doing the same thing. So something's going on with Google's licensing that I think has more to do with it than we think it does, because these things don't happen in a vacuum. And I mean, it's one thing to say Apple's pulling. Honestly, I was shocked that Apple TV was on Android, but that Google would pull its own services, I think, portends more about there's something going on with Google that we don't know about. I don't think this is something that we have on the docket, but I know that Google is transitioning their Stadia service to be more of a behind-the-scenes service. So, you may not even know that you're using Stadia. It could be something that is provided by other companies to let you play their games on any device. Maybe it has something to do with that, where Google's like, dealing with all these people is a headache. We're spending more on lawyers than we are on content. Maybe we just move to infrastructure behind the scenes and let others duke out the content. I don't know.
Well, I have a theory, and I'll make it real quick. One, yes, I think the Stadia thing is a good thing. I don't think Google, and I've said this for 2 years now, I told you that thing was a stinker. I told you it was not going to go. And not because the service didn't work. It's because Google doesn't know how to run these things. That's pretty clear. You have to have a good shepherd in front of your flock if you're gonna lead someone in there. Second of all, we have to remember that the world of online media has changed 1,000,000,000% since 2005 when YouTube started. Before then, I remember when a controversy was a mother getting sued because she played a Prince video on her YouTube.
Right.
And here we are now, though. Every other company has decided to become their own favored nation status. Every publisher is going to have their own app. Every movie company is going to have their own streaming service. And with that come digital rights. And so I think getting the rights to have this stuff on multiple platforms is about to become 1,000,000 times harder than it was. And it's like, I don't know if you know this or not, but you watch a lot of 80s, if you watch a lot of 80s shows on syndication on TV, they'll have one soundtrack. But if you watch those same shows on DVD, they're going to have a totally different soundtrack because they don't have the rights. The most famous one, don't laugh because it's really stupid, is Married with Children. Married with Children, I love that show. If you ever watched it, please tell me. Yes. It's a great show.
Yes.
They have a Frank Sinatra song, Love and Marriage. But if you watch it on syndication or anything, it's been replaced with this like MIDI track because they don't have the rights for the Frank Sinatra song. And they do this a lot with TV shows. And so media, it's like versions you get are going to be different depending on how you watch them, where you watch them. And I think it's about to get a lot worse before it gets better.
And not to point fingers, but I blame Friends. I honestly blame these shows and Seinfeld and Friends that sell for $1 billion, and everyone's sitting there thinking, "Wow, I have a semi-popular TV show from the '90s. I could, my company could be worth $1 billion. Let's start our own streaming service, or let's sell it to someone else for $1 billion." There was a report just yesterday. This kind of ties in loosely, where I think it was Spotify put out on their website, to show like transparency, how many people they pay, that kind of thing. People, and by people I mean also companies, they kind of look at the top 1%, the top 0.7% in this case, where they were saying 500 artists were paid $5 million plus. I think it was like 20,000 made more than $10,000 on Spotify. But then at the end, they kind of say 99.3% of people who upload music to Spotify make less than $10,000 a year. Man, it's never been easier to distribute your stuff. It's really hard to get paid for it as well.
Real quick, but to add to that, though, let me have a caveat. A lot of people will confuse things like Joe Rogan, for example, with Taylor Swift. Like Joe Rogan, for example, is getting paid by Spotify to create content for the platform, whereas Taylor Swift can take her music anywhere. In fact, no artist has exclusive contracts with any one streamer. It's like Taylor Swift's going to be on Spotify. She's going to be on Apple. She's going to be on whatever. She's going to be on all those things. So cumulatively, they may not get paid a lot, but honestly, it's better than nothing if you think about it, because the alternative is the radio, which doesn't pay dick. So they're going to have to learn to navigate. They're going to have to, and I hate to say it, like music artists are going to have to learn to pivot to performances again, because that's where the money is. If you want to make money, look, if you're a music artist and you want to make money, you have to perform, because that's where the money is. Sorry. If you can't play an instrument, learn.
Yeah. So I think that maybe if we're kind of seeing into the future, tinfoil hat, maybe Google is looking to be less of a content provider, more of a content distribution platform, and that wouldn't surprise me. Like you said, Google is very good at killing things, killing entire arms of their business. Makes perfect sense. I mean, hey, that's what Alphabet is. They they can chop off arms whenever they want to. Yeah. Well,
I mean, they have their strengths too, but the fact is, they're not as good at this. They're not as good as the content game as Amazon is. Amazon is very, very I gotta give Bezos credit. They've managed to become everybody's second favorite company for everything. They're nobody's, the only thing Amazon has that's a first favorite is probably shipping and product stuff, but they're not first for anything else, with the exception of books. But they're so good at it that you can't help but love them.
What did you think about that story that Amazon's killing off their bookstores, their physical bookstores? That was hilarious.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, that's not a surprise. It was a test that didn't work. It's that would be, I don't know. That would be like
that Amazon was so nostalgic for closing down bookstores like they first started, that they actually started their own bookstore so they could close them down to get that rush again. It was almost like a junkie just trying to get that hit again,
Well, I mean, they also have those new contactless stores where you go in there and everything's RFID and everything. So, true. I mean, it's different. It's a different thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, okay. All that aside, Google Play movies and stuff like that. Do you know, just off the top of your head, if you purchase content through Google Play and you have that, do you automatically get that with their new service over on YouTube, or?
Don't know.
Me either.
I imagine there's a system in place for transferring licenses, like the way they did when they killed off YouTube Red. And they allowed people, I was actually a fan of Google Music when it came out years and years and years and years ago, about 10 years ago. I get the free one. I never bought anything, but apparently you can transfer licenses from one service to another. So we'll see.
Yeah, definitely we'll see. And by the way, we'll include a link to this is all the good stuff when it comes to the TV shows, free with ads, all that. So, yep. Again, not a lot of shows that you might want to watch, but I mean, there's some stuff in here I've seen. sometimes. So there you go. Either way. Okay. So there's that. Let's go ahead and transition over to, I think this might be one of our last streaming stories. Mystery Science Theater 3000, the one that refuses to die, because it's such a fun concept. It was a fun concept. It was a cult classic, came back, and it was, still just fun.
It went away, came back, went away, came back, went away,
it's the Futurama
came back,
of,
went away,
of
came
ideas.
back.
Yes. So
yep, it never goes away. It's a new app. It's a new app that's going to resurrect the show for the millionth time. What's this app called this time?
Gizmoplex.
Yes,
Wait,
and it was a big Kickstarter effort. They're going to stagger. They're going to have this like interrent release between the movies and shorts. Mm-hmm. And again, it's what we were talking about. It's going to be an app. It's going to be something that you're going to have to get another platform for, or wait till people bootleg it and put it on torrents.
This seems like such a perfect and I know that it was for a while there. This seems like such a perfect fit for podcast. I don't know why they don't.
It does
leave it at that, but
it's because they don't realize that yet. It's like the same people made Riff Tracks. Remember Riff Tracks?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, Riff Tracks, you download the MP3 file and you watch it concurrently. Like that was a better system. But eventually it transformed into the same thing everything else did. It transformed into a TV show. Like you could watch the Riff Track things where they merged the MP3 file with the actual what's the word I'm looking for? Not open source, sorry. Public domain movies.
Right.
And it's because they don't. Here's the thing, man. There's no other way around this. I like Mystery Science Theater, but it's never a big show. And it's going to continuously be canceled if they try to make it a show that's not what it is. The show was successful for the same reason these public domain movies were successful, because it was free, cheap, it was on TV, and it played concurrently forever. Like I don't know if you know the history of Night of the Living Dead, George Romero's original movie. The movie was originally called Night of the Living Corpse, Night of the Flesh Eaters.
Okay.
And when they changed the name, they had to recopyright it. And it turns out, when they distributed the movie, they didn't put the copyright symbol on it. So the movie became automatically public domain. So George Romero got screwed on it. But because of that, it played forever. It played on everything. It didn't cost any money to have the show. And that's the sort of formula that made Mystery Science Theater so successful, because they had all these public domain movies that didn't cost anything, and they created content around it. Which, if you think about it, which is like 90% of what podcasting and content is now. Everybody's talking about a movie. Everybody's talking about a show. Everybody's talking about a website. Everybody's talking about something, but no one's actually creating anything other than the content around the show.
Right.
I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of the Netflix revival of it too much. It didn't feel right to me. But I'll give the new one a try.
Yeah.
I'll give it a chance. I'll see how it plays out.
Yep. It's I like that it exists, but I feel like it needs a better format. And yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Okay.
Yeah, like you can't have people hunt for it. That's the problem. It has to be readily available. It has to be like the Denny's menu. Have you ever seen the Denny's menu at the restaurant?
Lots of pictures. It's great.
Yeah, it's designed to order if you're drunk. And that's what these shows need to be. You need to turn on the TV and it's right there in front of you. Mm-hmm. Like A to Z, nothing in between.
There you go. So there's that one. Let's go ahead and move on over to this one. We didn't cover on the show because I didn't really I know that there's a lot of money in this. I know it's a big decision, and this change could mean a lot. But New York City taxi cabs, the yellow cab back in the day, before Uber, was worth very famously like $1 million for a license to drive a yellow taxi, or the badge, whatever it was. Now, thanks to Uber,
very complicated.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, I'm sorry. I think Uber actually almost put Yellow Cab out of business. So, what is their new relationship now? Because Yellow Cab, are they still needed?
This is exactly like the Mystery Science Theater story. Like this is an idea. This is like the obvious staring everybody in the face that you have technology that people want. You have product that people want. You need to make it work. And the problem is that ride-sharing services like Uber and Lyft have become almost adversarial against traditional taxi cabs. Or you could say the taxi cabs have become very adversarial against ride sharing. And I would say that's probably the right way to look at it, because like you said, in New York, you had an archaic system called the medallion system, where to drive a taxi cab in New York, it literally was an inheritable profession. You literally got like a magic medallion from like Indiana Jones that you kept. And that's how you were bestowed the power to drive a taxi. What the hell? But those things would be like $150,000.
Yeah.
Like you could sell them off. People would leave them to their family. They would do all kinds of things. And
very much like an old blood versus new blood kind of thing. But clearly the new system was, much more accessible. It was much more ready, and Yellow Cab.
It was a threat. Yeah. It was a threat. And that's why
this
you
also,
saw.
By the way, not just Yellow Cab, but London as well. I want to throw London in there. They had the same thing.
Well, London. In London, if you want to be a taxi driver in London, you have to pass this Byzantine test where you have to memorize every single geolocation. No GPS allowed. Like people have written about how complicated it is to get a taxi license, but it's became the purview of immigrants mostly. It became the purview of people who unskilled labor, so to speak, would be taxi cab drivers. And what Uber and Lyft did is it freed that, and it used technology as a way to give people a service that was spectacularly successful. Right. And of course, they must be destroyed. And that's why you saw New York and like Los Angeles and these big areas, like even Las Vegas, they would ban Uber, because that's just corruption right there. That's just absolute, like, that's when you have these entrenched systems like hotels that would ban Airbnb.
Protectionism,
it's like
for sure.
Yeah, exactly. But now they're playing Kumbaya together. So finally, they're working together. About time, guys.
So like the last time I actually got a taxi, it was like 5 a.m. There was no Uber or Lyft to take me to the airport, and I actually had to use a taxi. Oh my God, that was awful. I actually had to call like the dispatcher like 4 or 5 times to give him my exact location. And I'm like, if the app just worked, I might actually use a taxi more, because, they're licensed, they're professional. It's, not some weirdo. But the thing I hated, again, was the app. So the fact that the app now works with cabs, I think this is just a win-win. Like, despite blood feud and, all the bad blood in the history, this is a good thing, I think, for Yellow Cab. And I'm glad that they finally acquiesced.
They had to.
Yeah. Yeah, they had to. They definitely had to. So there you go. You may see more taxis. So, hey, maybe now when you pull up in the app at 3 a.m. in New York, you're going to see a lot more cars. So that's definitely good.
Well, I mean, but at the same point, though, this is the idea that, the technology won. Like the ride sharing technology was better than calling a number and then waiting out in the dark for a thing that you don't know where it's at. And may not be, and the person you don't know. I mean, I'm sorry, but time marches on, and the Uber technology was better. It was. Sorry.
Yeah, it is, all that good stuff. Let's transition a little bit to something that we did not cover on the show, because honestly, like, speaking of Reddit again, Reddit kind of killed my my desire to kind of talk about this, and I guess I should have, because we've had such as the inventor of the cell phone on the show, we have the inventor of the mouse on the show, we have the inventor of the keyboard on the show, we have the inventor of I don't think we had Tim Berners-Lee. Always wanted to have him on the show, but anyways, we've had these old technologists that really started the foundations of technology that we all use every day, and it's been so much fun to talk about. Talk to them, their inspiration, what they were thinking. By the way, a lot of them, it was another just 9 to 5 job, and they just went in that day and they just happened to create something that changed the world. They're all very humble people. One of those passed recently, never had him on the show, but it was the creator of, I'm going to say it, Nathan, the creator of the GIF.
Don't say it.
The creator of the GIF.
Yeah, but what does the G stand for in GIF?
Graphical.
Okay, how do you pronounce that word?
Graphical.
J. It's not GIF like peanut butter. It's G.
GIF though. It's GIF. Yeah. It is GIF. It is GIF.
He might have created it, but he's wrong. It's GIF. And you know what's funny? the people have spoken. Most people agree. Although it is pretty contentious, but it's become one of those sort of fun flame wars where people like we haven't gone to war like Ukraine and Russia over it yet, but people do take it very seriously. How the pronunciation of GIF versus GIF. I'm on Team GIF, by the way.
I realize that. And by the way, I know this about myself because I know myself very, very well. I've met myself a couple times. I will. Let's see. One of my fiance's brother-in-law. I think I have that right. I looked at a poster and it was of Link from obviously Zelda. The Zelda franchise. It was Link holding a sword with the Hyrule shield and all that kind of thing. And like in my head, I'm totally distracted. I'm like, check that out, nice Zelda poster. And it was Link, and they said actually that's Link, and I said great. And in my head, I was thinking, forever and ever, I'm going to call every instance of Link Zelda. If I'm in their company, I'm going to be contrarian. I'm going to tick them off. And I feel like that's the same energy in my head as I have for GIF and GIF. I get it. People say GIF. I'm going to say GIF because it's fun for me.
Ironically, there is a second argument that does involve Nintendo characters that is a GIF thing, and that is Mario versus Mario.
Well, that's just Mario. That's just dumb. That's just Mario.
It's he literally says Mario every time he talks.
It's me, Mario. Yeah, of course.
People still say Mario. It's weird how these things go. It's almost like the British when the British say herb and we say herb, and I'll be honest with you, but it's these distinctions that make the language fun.
It's not Erman Exum. It's Herman Exum.
But what I'm saying though is that it's fun, and language should be a little combative, and it should be different. It should be localized. It should be wrong. Like, for example, the man who created the acronym should have understand how you pronounce the G, hard G. But I like
this Time article that compared the whole GIF. Choosy moms choose GIF. That was some history I'd never heard of.
It is interesting. By the way, so Stephen, how do you pronounce this? Ironically, how do you pronounce that name? Wilhite?
Wilhite. Stephen Wilhite.
Yeah. Creator of the GIF/GIF. Yeah, passed away. And if you think about it, he made the meme memeable. Mm-hmm. He made it work. And so
Yeah. He passed away, and obviously his intention for it was just a way to send moving images very, very succinctly, like using very, very little bandwidth in the 90s. And they even have one of his favorite GIFs to ever exist was this dancing baby down here, which no accounting for taste. But yeah, he made he made a lot of. It's kind of funny, 25 years ago, it was just a way to, for developers to, I actually remember Craig's old website. Let's see, Wayback Machine, anyways, everyone was using these things and it made websites look horrible. But now we're using them and they're a mainstay of the internet as we know it.
Well, if you think about it, like MySpace was the first major social media thing, and the thing was absolutely like corrupted by dancing bananas and like animated GIFs. But the fact of the matter is that GIFs have become so integral to social media because they're basically haikus, or digital haikus, where they allow us to succinctly say something in as few words as possible without having to do the full work to do it. And it was funny that it's pretty impressive. Like, and not to be confused with a meme, by the way. Everyone says meme, but no, it's I use them all the time. I'm ashamed to admit it.
Yeah,
but I'm a GIFer. Oh, great!
They're certainly fun. Yes.
Turn that off.
This is Craig's old website. I'm trying to find
GeoCities.
Probably, but yeah. There we go. See, look, there's a flag waving GIF right there. And
God, memories.
Yeah, they're when
people
you were a web developer.
People don't know this, man. But GeoCities and Tripod. There you go. You had to learn some HTML.
So for those who can't see what we're looking at, also you can see Craig Crossman there, and he is the technologist that he ever was. Let's see if I can zoom in.
He hasn't changed a bit.
I don't know if you can notice that he actually made himself wink using. Yeah,
I love the headline. I love the headline right there. Multifunction doesn't mean group sex.
There you go.
God, I miss the 90s.
It's certainly a fun time. So anyways, let's get that off. I think the website looks a lot better. Check us out, computeramerica.com. Okay, so there's that. The last story that we have, and then I'll talk about Apple a little bit with you, and then we'll call it a day. But yeah, let's talk real quick about Netflix and their push into video games, because there was another one. I think it was there was someone else that was doing. I think it was Riot purchased the studio that helped them make Arcane. Riot purchased the movie studio, or the TV, whatever, the animation studio that helped them make the hit show Arcane, Batchest. But yeah, Netflix is also now acquiring the I think it was the game studio that helped them make what was it? The video game of that 180s nostalgia show. Help me out here.
Stranger
Things. There we go. Thank you. I don't know how that blanked my mind. Anyways, it seems like whenever they make partnerships, they just want to outright own the company that helped them.
Well, that's what it is.
Cool.
That's like, everyone talks about NFTs, but the real gold mine is buying these small game developers. Like, for example, Microsoft bought Activision for billions and billions and billions. Well, you buy a company that makes, you get them now while they're small. You don't have to wait till they make billions. Because think about it, Epic made Fortnite, but they also made Gears of War. They make Unreal Engine. You never really know what company is going to create the next big thing or the next big phenomenon, and they all want a part of that.
I still think back to the day when we had a very good relationship here on Computer America with PopCap. And I remember when when they announced that they were purchased by EA, sad day. But this is nothing new. That developers get snatched.
Actually, very appropriate. We talked about Halo, and Apple. Halo was announced by Steve Jobs at an Apple Macworld, and almost immediately after he announced that they showed the footage of it, Microsoft bought Bungie. Yeah. I mean, that was the first major acquisition that they got to create IP. No one really knew who Bungie was. I mean, I think before Halo, did they do System Shock? They did something, but Halo turned out to be a phenomenon under Microsoft's tutelage, and to their credit. Same with Mohang, with Minecraft. Like, you never really know what's going to happen unless you have access to that. And if you can create proprietary content, then yeah, go ahead and do it. I happen to think it's bad for the industry overall, the creativity, because it becomes about IP management. But I mean,
these acquisitions are getting out of control with tech companies. It really has. Like, there was one the other day, I don't even recall off the top of my head, where Apple acquired, I guess, someone who was helping them do like machine learning or something like that. But they bought them for like $6 billion. It was a deal over in Europe, and it's like
it's. Well, there's a game that came out today, I think, called Ghostwire Tokyo, and it's not developed. It's developed by who's that Japanese company, Tango, but it's released by Bethesda, and Bethesda, of course, was bought by Microsoft a little bit ago. But the game is not available on the Xbox. It's only available on the PlayStation 5 and the PC. IP
management,
IP management. So in a year, it'll be on Xbox, but because of pre-existing licenses, I mean, it's really sticky. The one who does it really well, I think, is Nintendo. Nintendo has a habit of not buying. They'll eventually, once in a while, they'll buy a developer. But what they'll do is they'll nurture a developer. To their credit, they'll invest a lot into a developer and say, "Here, make a Zelda game," or "Here, make a something game." And the relationships usually turn out really, really good. But Nintendo doesn't buy the developer usually. Like, they'll invest in Sega, they'll invest in Namco, they'll invest in Capcom, but they'll work
whoever
with,
made
but not
Pokemon Go,
buy. Niantic, for example, that's a good example. Or Pokemon Company. Nintendo doesn't own the Pokemon Company, but they might as well.
Yeah.
But what's happening here though is different. This is to get talent, and it's to get IP. And I don't necessarily think that helps either when it becomes sort of a gold mine, a race just to acquire as many as you can.
Yeah.
I just don't.
I like your association with collecting NFTs. I mean, just because you have a company doesn't mean that they'll spit out something good. Although, hey, Netflix could be taking the Netflix approach and just putting out garbage and hoping enough of it and they turn a profit maybe.
Well, I think Netflix worked with Telltale Games a while ago, and they basically saved that company from bankruptcy. And so And Netflix has gotten into some interesting technology with like Bandersnatch from the Black Mirror show.
Yeah, and there's you like play the TV show and stuff. Yeah,
yeah, and so I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, I poo-poo on Netflix, but they are a pretty good company, and they have more hits than misses, and they've generally been good for the industry. So, I mean, a new player in the game industry, Netflix is a much better position to make a dent than Google ever was. So. We'll see.
I do find it, and this is just me, being the whole anti-acquisition thing that I am, that, we're seeing Riot Games get more into TV and movies. We're seeing Netflix get into video games. You see Microsoft get into producing TV shows now, like the Halo TV series. And, just when you said IP management, I mean, it's getting messy. And I hate that there's only about a dozen real players in the market, and everyone else that starts up a video game company or starts up a studio, they're just waiting to get bought by one of those dozen.
Well, you mentioned Halo, for example. Again, if you have Xbox Game Pass, you get access to Paramount Plus. Right. That's clearly a result of that relationship. But again, I don't know how it's going to end up. I think it's going to end up a lot stickier and messier. But I think, as opposed to the freedom that people thought it was going to have, I think we were moving towards a very more economical way for distributing content, distributing games. And to be honest with you, I don't like using the word IP. These aren't IP. These are intellectual property. These are games. But at the end of the day, Halo as a property is different than like Halo Reach or Halo, 5. It's a brand, and whether you like the show or not, that show's not based on the game. It's based on the brand. And I think you have to know that going in, because it's just the way, that's just the future of how this content's going to be for, like, Star Wars. Mm-hmm. It's like Star Wars isn't what it used to be. It's a brand now. It's always been a brand, but it's more evidently a brand now than it's ever been before.
So let's move on to our last topic. And you're right. One thing that we did mention on the show yesterday was this idea that Apple might be moving to a hardware subscription service where you sign up, you pay X amount of dollars, probably a couple hundred over the course of a year or two, and I should say a monthly fee. They're thinking, some people are speculating, $30 to $40 a month. You would get a smartphone, you would use it for the entire duration of that smartphone cycle. So think of 1 year. Apple usually comes out with a new phone every year, and you would then upgrade automatically, but you keep paying the same monthly fee. So you would not own the phone, you would not be able to sell it back, you can't trade it in, but at the end of the year you send it back, you get the next generation of phone, and you use that happily, and Apple gets to refurbish your phone, sell it elsewise. So we didn't want to talk too much about that because, again, a lot of speculation, a lot of maybe, but if that were to come true, that would be a different approach, and I don't know how cell phone carriers would like that.
They hate it because it cuts in their dividends. But it'd be very similar to what Microsoft did with the Xbox Series X and S, where they offered a subscription service where you pay a certain amount of money every month and you get the console. Of course, can't do it because you can't find the thing, but it's basically the same concept. And what's funny is that everybody's doing this now, by the way. To some extent, they're all breaking up payments. They're all staggering payments. Amazon, you don't even need credit. You want to buy a Kindle? They'll break up the payments every 5 months. Everybody's doing this because they want a commitment for you to buy the product now, even if they're not getting interest rates on it, which is interesting too, because they're not trying to make a profit off the staggered payments. Apple has been quietly setting up this distribution for recycling old iPhones or reconstituting old iPhones for a very long time. They have the distribution network for it. They have the stores for it. They don't need the carriers at all. In fact, I think the new iPhones are all SIM card free. You don't even need SIM cards anymore. I'm in the market for a new phone. I'm thinking about the iPhone SE 2022. Yeah. I have the 2020. Honestly, the worst phone I've ever had. But you could see how it could be better if they fix the problems. But the problem is I don't want to spend $400 up front. So if they said, hey, if you do this, we'll break it up. Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, but and that's something that's traditionally about the carrier. And by the way, the question in the chat saying what happens if you break it? I think they're also talking about Apple Care, which is already a thing where you can sign up for Apple Care, which is like insurance. Like think about if you rent a car, you'll have like rental insurance. If you have rental insurance, they'll take care of it, and you pay $10 extra every month. If you don't have it, you have to pay to replace it, and that comes out of your pocket.
To be fair, though, Apple has pretty like best-in-class basic insurance built in. Like, I bought my phone at Best Buy 2 years ago, and it broke, and Apple took care of it every time. I just went to Best Buy, took it back. Apple covered it for me, like well beyond Best Buy's own warranty. So I got to get again. Apple's well situated. They're not new at this, and you simply can't get that with any Android phone on any tier. So like Apple's basic customer care support is better than most companies' premium. And that's because they have like 15, 20 years of investment in this.
Okay, so I want to talk about one thing real quick, and then we're going to talk about the Apple event that happened a little bit ago, and then that'll be the end of the show today. But I want to bring up, Nathan, I talked about this off the air. I can talk about it a bit on the air with you. Have you heard about the Nothing phone, or the phone by Nothing? Nothing is the company, and they're supposed to be bringing out a smartphone here soon.
I really haven't.
Okay, good, because there's a lot of coverage from I would say the main tech companies out there. Places like Ars Technica, the Verge. The usual places. Yeah, the 500-pound or 800-pound gorillas in the room. They cover the Nothing phone. Like, they had a behind-the-scenes snapshot of a prototype, and they all reported on it at the same time. They have rumors that they could be announced in a couple of weeks. They all reported on it at the same time. Nothing was the company started by the gentleman who made the OnePlus series of phones. They sold to, Oppo, I think, OPPO. They sold to that company, and he went off, started his next company. And I said this off the air. I was like, this stinks to high heaven, like paid promotion.
It's DOA. Yeah, it's DOA. It's BS. And you know what? I got 3 words for you. The essential phone. Remember that?
Yeah. That was supposed to be the next low or kind of budget but high quality phone that was supposed to take over as well. And, anytime someone says it's going to take on the iPhone, it's dead. Like, because you can't. Like, it's a different product. You're going to take on the iPhone with another Android phone? Really? Never seen that before. It's I'm sorry, but it's just It was more of the type of way it was getting published that had me thinking, they're paying a lot to have journalists all report on leaks at the same time, and it just stinks so much of like press releases
it's a strategy. It's a bait strategy. It's very common in the tech world, especially if you said the Verge, then I know exactly what's going on here. The Verge is the biggest stooges of them all.
Yeah, so everyone, you might be hearing more about that in the near future, but I gotta say the Nothing phone, which is, by the way, one of the most confusing ways to name a company, because when trying to report on it, is saying the word nothing as the company, that's really hard to, kind of talk about. But anyways,
it's so funny. It's so funny that people take these people seriously.
That whole series of phone is just blows my mind. Anyways, okay, so from that aside, let's finish up with the whole Apple spring event, just to catch everyone up. The main things that they announced were the Apple, the Studio, which was the small mini-form computer that's supposed to replace entirely the iMac Pro.
I love the way it looks, by the way. I love how ugly and boxy it is. It just looks like a Mac Mini,
an Apple TV,
a fat Mac Mini.
It looks like an Apple TV double stacked. Yes.
Yeah, it's literally the most basic idea. I think what it was, remember the last one looked like a cheese grater. Before that, it looked like a toilet bowl. This is what happens when Apple doesn't have Johnny Ive anymore to make beautiful products. It's just a box. And honestly, it's exactly like the Xbox Series X, which is just a box. There's nothing. You look at the PlayStation 5, the damn thing is the ugliest sin. It's not aerodynamic. It's too big. You look at the Xbox, it's a box. You look at the new MacBook Studio, the Mac Studio, it's a box.
At least Microsoft was keen enough to sell the Xbox mini fridge. At least they were kind enough to do that.
Which looked like a box. And so, but I'll give Apple credit though. They focused on, they did a major thing. They focused on making a very powerful, expensive computer, and they weren't shy away on ports. I guess you still can't upgrade the memory or anything, but it's a start in the right direction that they have a relatively normal computer again, which they haven't had for a long time.
Right. So they released the Studio, which you like. By the way, them making their own hardware, they're really showing what they can do when you can produce your own chips and produce the interface and the OS and all that kind of thing. They squeezed a lot of power out of a little bit of room, and while it's still a premium, I think that certain people are going to love the fact that you can get. That thing had how much RAM? It had 18 terabytes. No, not 18 terabytes, but it was like 8 terabytes of RAM or something like that. It was pretty incredible.
Well, keep in mind their last flagship desktop PC went for $50,000. So
this one starts at 30. This one starts at 30.
Yeah. But I mean, as far as just a generic the box though, I mean, this is Apple being a little more productive towards their base. There's no effort here to appeal to netbook people. This is not for you. This is a different world.
So there was a Studio, and then there was the screen that had it was it
had its own processor. Has its own processor.
Yeah. It's essentially its own tablet, but then it also interfaces that you need the computer, but the screen itself can do a little bit of light work as well. The monitor looked good. Not really too much to say about that. It looks kind of like an iMac Pro, but just the monitor part. And very expensive as well. I think that thing was $1,500, or you can spend an extra $400 to upgrade for the pivot arm. Good on them for thinking about ergonomics and making it a multi-$100 thing.
I'm not going to have any of these things in my house. But again, we talked about why you want to talk about it because of the M1 chip, because of their own silicon, which I have some experience with. I told you I was on the fence about buying a MacBook. I'll be honest with you, it's really fast. It's really fast. It's hard to explain if you're coming from Windows land, but yeah, what you heard is true. We booted up Photoshop. We did a Photoshop test on a new versus an i7, 32 gigs of RAM and everything. Applications on the new MacBook, on the MacBook Air, by the way, on the Air, boot up in a second. A second.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's insane. Everything renders faster. This is a product. Apple can claim to have the fastest functional production laptop again. You're going to play games on it? You are not going to play games on it. But that's not why you buy a MacBook. You buy it for the processing. You buy it for the Photoshop, and you buy it for GarageBand and stuff. You do not buy it for Fortnite.
So
you shouldn't be buying it for Fortnite.
Yeah. So one thing that I do want to kind of give their people credit for was this Ultra thing that if you're watching the screen you can kind of see a nice little GIF of what they were talking about. But they did something that I think even NVIDIA has been struggling to do, that Intel struggles to do, and that is literally taking two processors, and just taping them together and getting them to doubling the size, but then doubling the speed out of it as well. Even NVIDIA would love to be able to do that. Apple did something really crazy here, and I could see this technology, if it could work, why stop at 2? Why not glue 4 of them together if you can get everything to kind of communicate like that? And that's something Apple did very well.
Well, think about it, though. I mean, Intel has to provide a myriad of chips for 1,000 different companies.
That's true.
So is NVIDIA. When Apple went away from Intel and everything, it's because the structure wasn't built for them. The structure was basically, how can we satisfy 40,000 OEMs? And Apple's like, well, why don't we just satisfy ourselves? You need to do a motherboard chassis? Well, just make it. Just take away a feature. Take away a headphone jack. Take away a Thunderbolt. Whatever. Put whatever you need. Apple in some way, them being sort of hegemonic and dictatorial, put them in a better position to be that company, and it worked out. But the gauntlet again has been thrown down, and now it's up to companies like Intel and AMD to prove that they can compete. So they became lazy. You're not going to sit here and convince me that Intel and AMD have not been lazy. They've just been churning out iterative products for years and years and years, but nothing fancy. The M1 chip for Apple is revolutionary. It was very different, and it made things better. And now it's up to them. It's up to the old boys, or don't.
I'm looking how to mark up a website on Edge because that's what I use. I'm using Edge. Let's see. Was it make a web notes? Where is that? Launch Edge. Click on the pen icon. I don't have the pen icon. Anyways, I want to draw on this image, but let's see. Do I even have it here? I don't think I do. Anyways, this graph, though, I will take exception to Apple for, this is why I'm saying third-party review sites like Popzara and like so many others, they're very, very good to have real-world benchmarks, is because they'll put out images like this.
We're okay, but we're not obsessive.
Y'all are good. Herman and and Corey and everyone out there.
He's pretty thorough. They're pretty thorough.
Y'all are good. Okay, so what I'm saying though is that this graph in particular, if I had a pen, you can kind of see my mouse here. If this graph were to keep going, M1 Ultra, this graph is true. The problem is it's very zoomed in, and to kind of claim that that the M1 Ultra, which is an amazing chip, is as good as something that probably costs 3 times as much and takes up a lot more space. This line from this is supposed to be a 3090, an RTX 3090. This line should actually, if you zoomed out a bit more, the M1 Ultra stops here, but then this line for the 3090 should end somewhere, another 50% higher than the M1 Ultra can with more power consumption. The M1 can't take any more power and can't put out any more juice, but it can go much higher. We're
still talking about Moore's law to some respect. Like, Apple's M1 chip is not some magical thing that's automatically that solved physics and silicon and can
exactly.
do that. But when you look what it is though, for a first generation product to be more efficient than legacy hardware or legacy design, you could tell like now the template has been rewritten. I think people need to focus more on what Apple has suggested than what they're clearly exaggerating. Like that, and that's the other thing. Software has to be written for this. Like every piece of software on Apple has to be rewritten for the M1 chip. It's not very compatible with Intel software. Like you can't install Windows on it before. Like there's all kinds of stuff. But once it's more efficient though, then you're going to start seeing like, when you stop having everything being sort of tailored for old technology, you're going to start seeing dividends pay off all around. And again, it's just hard to talk about a little bit, Ben, because so much of technology when we talk about chips has to do with gaming, and Apple's not even in the business. Like they're not concerned with that. They're not concerned with, because I think when people see GPU, they think, oh, how many frames can I get in Elden Ring? Like they're not thinking in terms of data processing,
rendering speed, and data processing, and AI, and all that good stuff.
They're not thinking that.
The M1 Ultra is a 64 core GPU, which is pretty good, and of course their CPU is I think it's a 20 core 40 thread as well, which puts it right on par or right up against the best of Intel and a lot of AMD's lineup.
We've been here before. We've been here before with PowerPC. We were here before, and it turns out Apple going to Intel was a remarkable improvement for them. Remember when Apple went to Intel, you could use Windows, you had more interoperable software. Mac sold better than ever, but Apple felt it necessary to go backwards and to do their own CPU again. So we'll see how it goes.
And by the way, just speaking of Intel, the fact that Apple did this was amazingly fortuitous. Like with the whole Apple or the whole chip shortage. At this point, we have, I guess, kind of realized as a society, we can never have too many computer chips. The more people putting them out, the more people manufacturing them, the better. Apple, I think, did amazing to build out their own facility, make their own chips in a time of a chip shortage. So, at least they're still affected, but not as much as other companies. So Apple did right. Yeah.
I've said this before on this show that I always thought the last big magic trick that Steve Jobs did was putting Tim Cook in charge. Well, he's not an idea man. He's not an innovation man. Like he's not the thinker that Jobs was. He was a supply chain man, and he's the best in the world at it. And Apple has been relatively unaffected by the chip shortage in the way that every other person was. Like we look at video games, we can't get a PlayStation 5, costs $500. Can't get a Switch, costs $300. Meanwhile, Apple sells millions of iPhones that all cost more. Like it's a different world. They don't exist on the same capitalistic playground as the rest of them. And I always thought that's the one advantage they still have, is playing in this playground and being able to manufacture their own chip. Yeah, it's fortuitous. It's interesting. It's an interesting time in the history of silicon.
I'm looking forward to the next couple of years where, you have the likes of Intel promising to put up, I think, like $30 billion to put up factories all over Europe and America. You have TSMC looking to put facilities in America as well to make these chips. I'm really looking forward to, kind of the future, because there was a story today about how NVIDIA and Intel might team up. And like, to me, that's been covering this, I'm like, obviously, NVIDIA can't make enough cards to save their lives. And so, they're going to partner with anyone who is willing to make their chips.
I'll say two things and I'll be done. One, it's so interesting to have a conversation about chips and microchips and processors, and not talk about video games and not talk about that. Like Apple's, like when we're talking about Apple, we're talking about something completely different. And years and years and years ago, like the history of competitive products has always been about consolidation and always been about mergers. And I wouldn't be surprised in the next 10 years if you see some sort of strategic mergership or partnership between AMD and Intel or NVIDIA, or two of the big players, sort of like when Sirius and XM radio were two different satellite radios, none of the same. Like at a certain point, the market can withstand a lot, but it cannot withstand too much.
Right.
And when you're talking about products on the margins, like when you're talking about Apple Silicon, you're not talking about cryptocurrency. You're not talking about data mining. You're not talking about server racks. You're not talking about GPUs. You're talking about a computer for a very different function than you would if you're going to build a PC. Mm-hmm. And they don't use Intel or AMD chips, whereas everyone else does.
I don't know if any major acquisition is going to happen anytime soon, as seen by ARM and I think it was NVIDIA, right? That NVIDIA?
Well, you saw. I mean, who bought who?
That fell through.
Who bought ARM? Did it fall through? Okay.
Yeah. That fell through. Regulators in Europe did not give it the go ahead, and so ARM has to.
We shall see.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, the valuation of ARM went down like 30%, and they're now in trouble of just falling through, and then they'll sell off the scrap. But I think it was NVIDIA was going to buy ARM, and that didn't work out. But we'll definitely have to wait and see. So with that, Nathan, I've already taken so much of your time. This always happens. For many of our correspondents, I try to keep it about half an hour. With you, I let it go however long it goes. And thank you for the past hour and a half. That was a lot of fun. And
there's a lot to talk about.
Definitely. Normally Nathan Evans joins us every last Friday of the month. The month before in February, he joined us a little bit sooner. So that's why there was a big, kind of Nathan drought. I don't know. But
I want to say this. Going back to where we started from, I don't really care about the Oscars per se, but if you do, I would suggest go listen to our best of 2021 movies podcast. I'm very proud of it. I think we had a very good selection there. There's Nicolas Cage with Pig. But I think that's like a 3-hour episode, and we cover a lot. You don't even need to watch the movies after you listen to this. So I don't usually whore our own podcast out, but whore away.
All right. We'll expand the chat, and of course everyone that will be one of the links in the show notes. You can of course find that there. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning into the program. Let me play the outro music, and Nathan, we'll have you back on the end of next month. I'm really looking forward to it. Always so much fun to talk to you. And once again, everyone, popzara.com, computeramerica.com, all that good stuff. Thank you for tuning into the program, and we'll catch you here next time. Everyone, stay safe, have a great weekend. Bye-bye.